Hey, you beautiful twin flames, and welcome back to Tarot for You 444. Today I have an audio video. it's just me speaking. I'm not actually showing my face today because I want you to grasp the messages without any distractions today. So this is a concept video, and it's going to be all about the masculine and his kind of trajectory on the path or on the journey towards union. And so what I want to talk about today is really relevant and important because many of you don't know, especially if you're the divine feminine, even if you can tap in, in the 5D sense, many of you don't really know what's going on for the masculine. And so today is all about shedding some light on what it feels like to be the divine masculine, and also how deep, I guess we could say, how deep the core wounding goes. But it's not really in the way you think. So it's not about, clearing karma or clearing past lives or any of that kind of stuff. It's more about how the divine masculine sees himself within the connection with you. And so there's kind of 4 points that I want to make. So feel free, if you want to pause the video now and take some notes, because I feel like it's going to be really an important video for you to kind of come to grasp with some of these concepts that you may not have thought about before. And of course, all of these different things that I'm going to be mentioning today are all really focused around the word surrender. Okay, so when you surrender, this is a really vulnerable place to be. So the divine feminine will know this word. Many other twin flame coaches or speakers or tarot readers will talk about detachment. I don't like that word because it kind of implies that you are forgetting about the other person, or I don't know. It's just, I don't know. I just don't like the word. It just doesn't ring true for me. But the divine feminine understands the word surrender, and this word is, especially if you've been in separation from your divine masculine for a really long time, you kind of forced into a space of surrender. So, at first you might fight it. You might say, well, where are they? I don't understand why they're doing this to me. And it's this separation consciousness that might occur. But, in truth, they are you. And so as you eventually surrender, I guess you could say surrender to the divine, surrender to source energy, surrender, the control of, having it come the way you want it to come. The divine feminine understands this word really, really well. Okay. Now, the divine masculine's going to compartmentalize this journey, whether they realize they're doing this or not. Okay, so whether they realize they're in a twin flame connection or not is irrelevant. But what happens is that they start asking themselves some really important questions throughout this journey. And so they may ask this whether you're in semi-union, talking to one another on and off, or whether they're in full separation. But what happens to the divine masculine is that when he feels the love from the divine feminine and begins to understand that, you know, she's all in, especially in the beginning, it kind of freaks him out, because in general, other people who are of a 3D mindset or consciousness usually just want to use him for some kind of thing. You know, maybe other women have used him for his money. Maybe, you know, take gender how it resonates, but maybe they've used him for his body. Maybe they've used him for his intellect. Maybe they've used him for his resourcefulness. You know, this is friends and family and relationships, you know, whether that's dating or otherwise. People have kind of utilized him for his mind and his body, and the divine feminine actually sees him for his soul. You know, the divine feminine falls in love with his soul. And so this kind of trips him up. This is kind of like where he goes, hang on a minute. I need to question this, because this is not normal. You know, how can somebody really care about me for real? And also I'd be feeling all of these amazing feelings. You know, that kundalini rising, that bliss, that amazingness that I have never experienced with anyone else. So this triggers a battle of his ego, which is the first point I want to make. His ego starts coming in and saying, which is highly connected to the mind, of course. And his ego says, okay, this can't be real. This is too good to be true. This, you know, there must be something I'm not seeing. There must be a red flag, perhaps. And this is where the separation begins. And of course, you know, if he comes back to the connection and divine feminine is beautiful and graceful as she usually is, he's still in awe. You know, how can she just love me for me? No one else loves me for me. Maybe his parents do, depending on, you know, what kind of upbringing he's got. But he goes, you know, this is really different to what I'm used to. I'm not used to this. And so his mind will come in and tell him, maybe make up stories, you know, that, you know, this is a red flag, or, you know, maybe she's not, you know, she's seeing me in such a perfect light and I'm not really perfect. And so this beginning of understanding that there is an ego versus a soul becomes paramount to him. And because most divine masculines are still in their ego primarily because they're going through an awakening, what then happens is this triggers a lot of things inside of them. You know, let's just say in the past they may have, I don't know, not shown their true selves to people. You know, the only people that really knew them was God and themselves, you know. And so this causes a fear of vulnerability. And this fear is, of course, a lower vibration. And it can turn into a sadness and even a depression or a dark night of the soul, where the divine masculine starts questioning, you know, I don't know, maybe I'm not really good enough in general. Like maybe this being put up on a pedestal is a trigger for so many other things. You know, I've been untrue to myself in relationships in the past. You know, maybe I've got cellulite somewhere that I don't want the divine feminine to see. Maybe I'm too emotionally broken for her to really delve in and see who I am. Maybe I came through or came across as being confident, and now that she can truly see my soul, I'm scared that she's going to see that my confidence really isn't there. And so this is a cause for separation. Whether the separation is for a long time or for a short time, the divine masculine goes into this reclusive or hermit mode where they start thinking about, you know, maybe I need to take a look at myself. You know, how is it that someone so wonderful and so beautiful can see me in such a wonderful light when really there are all these shadows within myself? And so this is part of the separation, is that they can see in themselves the things that they want to change that they've ignored for a really long time. And this can cause, like I said, a dark night of the soul. It can cause a fear or a sadness, even a depression for some, because it's really hard to go within, and divine feminine will know this from experience. It's really hard to go within and take a look at yourself. And because divine feminine has come to the divine masculine in a real and authentic way, it kind of triggers him to be authentic. And for some divine masculines, it's too hard to look at themselves in the mirror and to see what their bad behaviors might be, or where they've been ignoring themselves because they don't want to feel the pain. You know, the divine feminine finds it easier to feel it because, you know, that's who she is. She's an empath. But divine masculine is usually more logical, and so this feeling, or all of these feelings that get triggered, are really uncomfortable. So he may come through this dark night of the soul, or this sadness, or this fear energy, and, you know, and do some work on himself. Maybe he'll be more understanding. Maybe he'll realize that some of the behaviors he's been doing aren't really congruent with who he wants to be. But over the course of the journey, the divine feminine can keep triggering him into this, having to look at himself. As she surrenders, it also causes this effect in him over time. And so, you know, at first it might have been something like, you know, he didn't feel real in the connection. You know, he had just been thinking it was going to be a fun time, not a long time. And then, you know, divine feminine showed that she was different to others that he'd been with. And so then he went, wow, this is really blowing my mind. I need to, you know, realize that maybe the way I've treated other people in the past hasn't been fair. So that might be the first realization that he comes to. It's funny, there's dogs barking in the background, and there's this protection energy that I was just about to speak about, and the divine masculine finds it really hard to delve in really deep and feel all of these things. You know, it's kind of like they have a shell. They don't want to go too deep. because the pain can be unbearable. So then once they come through this, it can be triggered again and again, like I say, but there's also this feeling of, especially in the divine masculine, that maybe if he does think about the connection as being a union eventually, he also can realize that maybe he's not good enough for the divine feminine. Maybe all of these flaws that he sees within himself puts him out of the running. You know, maybe he can't, I don't know, depending on what his belief systems and culture is, but, you know, maybe he can't provide for her in the way he wants to. Maybe he can't show up for her in a really loving way because he doesn't know how to. You know, maybe he's afraid of making love to her because he's not really sure on how to do it. Maybe he's already married and so that's a block. You know, and for some who are already in a connection, this can be really difficult because maybe their religion or their culture says, you know, you can't just get a divorce. You'll be going against everything you believe in or everything you've been taught to believe in. And so there comes this real calamity within inside of themselves where they just don't know if they can show up for their counterpart. So the divine feminine really triggers this shedding of ego in the masculine because the feminine just sees the love. She's willing to forgive and forget and leave in the past anything that's of the past. And he's never met anyone who's been willing to do that. In fact, she may be so chivalrous as to offer her time, her resources, her, in some cases, her dignity. Many divine feminines willingly, you know, make love to or, you know, sext or, you know, spend intimate times with their masculine before their masculines are even awakened. And so as the divine feminine surrenders and lets down her walls, whether that's within the separation or within the connection, he sees this vulnerability in her and he questions whether or not he can do it too. You know, in the past he may have had connections with people that are superficial or he's kept his mask on. But he knows that this connection is different. And so as the ego begins to shed, there becomes some fear and some sadness within him. And these dark nights can keep coming. So this is kind of why some divine feminines say, you know, I had a great time with my divine masculine. Everything was going tickety-boo, wonderful, fantastic time. And then he disappeared and I didn't hear from him for, I don't know, 3 months or 3 days or 3 weeks or however long it is. And then he'll reappear as if, you know, kind of like nothing ever happened, and he'll have some kind of excuse, maybe about work or maybe about, I don't know, whatever his excuse is. My mum's auntie's brother's sister's cousin needed me for a while, and wasn't feeling myself, you know, depending on their personality, depend on what they tell you. But so the divine masculine goes through these many dark nights of the soul, and as the divine feminine shows up for him, whether that's in the separation and in all of her surrender, in working on herself, or whether it's in, you know, actual reality where they're communicating, he sees the light in her, and she really shows him how much love is possible. And for him, this is like being in the Twilight Zone, you know. Maybe he's had connections with other people before. You know, maybe that's been purely sexual, or maybe it's been, you know, a kind of codependent thing. But the divine feminine's willing to stay there, come hell or high water, which is a saying, you know, no matter what, you know, warts and all. And he's never known anyone to be like that. I mean, maybe his mother's like that, or maybe his father's like that because they're his family, but, you know, a complete stranger loves him fully, all of his flaws, is willing to accept him, willing to help him through the tough times, willing to be there unconditionally. This is really a scary thing. And so many of them stay away or make excuses to stay away. Or they come back and then make another excuse to go away. Or sometimes they cause conflict within the connection as an excuse to stay away. You know, to trigger the feminine, to trigger a separation, because they've never known such love. So they might even send, you know, in some cases they might even send a text that says, you know, it's not me, it's not you, it's me. You know, you've heard that a million times. You know, I'm going through something right now, I can't commit fully. You know, it's just not the right time, or we live too far away. You know, you're with someone else, I'm with someone else. It's, you know, there's too many blocks coming in the way. You know, my work is going to interfere. For those of you in separation, you'll know all of the excuses. And so what is this really? This really is them being afraid of, number one, looking at themselves in the mirror and realizing that they have been wearing a mask for a really long time. Not a real mask. Not a real mask. In fact, studies have shown, and I want to bring this up quickly, that people who do wear masks for real have a 35% chance, I think it's 32 to 35% chance of getting throat cancer, let alone a breathing disorder of some kind that, you know, can cause some kind of respiratory condition. Now, I'm not trying to bring in my opinion on wearing a mask, but I am talking about the divine masculine wearing a mask. And we notice how the throat chakra is always affected. You know, when I do my readings and my channelings, quite often, you know, my throat starts playing up and I say, oh, sorry about my throat. But there's so many things that's muffled in him. And it's only when the divine feminine and the divine masculine meet that his heart chakra kind of bursts open. Right? And before that, he's been holding all this stuff in. He's been wearing a mask, which obviously is not literal, but it closes him off, makes him susceptible to illness, makes him susceptible to not being able to tap into the higher energies, because if your heart chakra is closed off, then the chakras above will also be blocked off as well, which means you can't intuitively know what to say or intuitively know what to do. And this is why the divine masculine can make so many mistakes. Not necessarily mistakes, but have learning curves. And so the divine feminine is the one who opens up his heart chakra for the first time, which means he's feeling it all. He's feeling those feelings. He's looking at himself going, why am I not like this? Why have I been, hiding? And then we have the dog barking again, the protection. It's this protection energy. If I close off my heart, I won't get hurt. But then when divine feminine comes into his life, his heart opens and he sees the truth for the first time. He literally feels her, even if they're miles apart. He can feel her energy. It's like he, if he was a robot that had been not working for a while, it's like she puts that battery into his circuit and turns him on, and he goes, oh my God, look at how much I was missing out on before she came into my life. And then everything kind of crashes down around him emotionally, because he's been living in this lie, telling himself that he was great, telling himself that he was fine, everything was great, his relationships were great, everything was fine, and it wasn't fine. And so this word surrender becomes really important, because this is what he's doing in the separation, is he's learning how to surrender. In fact, it gives him clarity being away from her, because he misses her like crazy. But he can only miss her when the divine feminine surrenders too, because if the divine feminine is doing the missing, then he's not. We have the opposite polarities here. So after the divine feminine surrenders, it allows him to do the same. And she may surrender and then not surrender, and then surrender and not surrender. And so he follows. He surrenders and then he doesn't surrender, and he surrenders and he doesn't surrender. And so you can see how what she does is like a puppet string to him. So I've done this channeling concept video today because I really want you to understand that the masculine goes through it too. The masculine questions himself, am I good enough for this person? Am I good enough, full stop? The sadness that the masculine can feel, it's kind of like he's been pushed into this fifth dimensional consciousness and above by the divine feminine. And before that, he only knew the 3D or the third dimensional consciousness. And that's scary, because then you feel different. Other people don't resonate with you anymore. Friends and family don't seem to understand you anymore. You know, if they've got a dream, let's say, you know, their friends and family might say, what are you doing that for? Or, you know, why do you want to move to Timbuktu, where your divine feminine lives, let's say? That's craziness, you know? And so the people around them also see the difference in how they're behaving. Because after they meet the feminine, their life changes forever. You know, it's like comparing a black and white movie to a color movie. You know, before they had color vision or whatever they, you know, color it in with. You watch a black and white movie and then watch it, you know, after they've colored it in, and, you know, it's so much better when there's colors. It's like before he met the feminine, he didn't see any color in his life. I mean, he thought he did. He thought everything was fine. But it's a kaleidoscope. It's like a kaleidoscope. It's like a rainbow. It's like the most amazing thing ever. It's you know, a fairy tale possibility that he never considered before. You have to remember too that the divine masculine is a logical creature. He compartmentalizes everything. And when divine feminine shows up and they meet, all of a sudden his world is turned upside down, because he never felt that before. You know, he may have been in 50 different connections with other previous partners, you know, depending on his ideas or his lifestyle or whatever. But when he comes into contact with his divine feminine, whether that's, you know, over a Skype call or really for real in the real world, as in, you know, touching, he's never felt this way before, and this triggers so much in him, you know. It's like meeting that superhero that you never thought you'd ever meet. You know, it's only in your dreams that you'd ever be able to meet, I don't know, Wonder Woman. And there she is. Take gender how it resonates, of course. Not everyone will resonate with the gender. You know, obviously it's the energy. Divine masculine is an energy and divine feminine is an energy. So I'm going to leave the channeling there today. I want you to have a think about how your divine masculine processes these things, and how that in the third dimensional consciousness they process these things in a compartmentalizing kind of way. You know, they've got a box for everything, but with the divine feminine there is no box. You know, she blows everything out of the water in a really magical way, and it's really difficult for him to understand how that works, because it defies the laws of logic. It defies the laws of gravity, you know. He starts questioning, is gravity even real? You know, he starts questioning everything, himself included. And so he doesn't run because he doesn't want her. He runs because it scares him. It scares him to feel all of these things, and it scares him to know that someone could love him that much. So he's basically afraid of the love. He's also afraid of feeling all of these feelings that he's never felt before. And any kind of stress or post-traumatic stress disorder or depression or sadness that he's had about other things in his life comes to the surface to be transmuted. And this can take a long time. This can take weeks, years, months, decades for some. And so the divine feminine needs to surrender to allow the divine masculine to surrender. I don't want to say detached, because the twin flames are always together in the ethereal realm. And I don't like that word, because it denotes that, you know, you're cutting a cord of some kind, and you just can't, because you are the same soul. It's impossible to actually detach from your twin flame. You can try as you might, but it'll never happen. Okay. So if you need my services, please look in the description box below. I have so many wonderful packages that will help you through your journey. I also do personal readings for 30-minute, 45-minute and 1 hour. And I'm sending you so much love from Australia today. And I really hope you have a beautiful day, night, afternoon, evening or morning, wherever you are in the world. And just a quick shout out to those people who are going to comment, there's no picture. This was an audio recording only for a twin flame concept video, so that you can really listen and hear the message, okay, without distraction. Okay, so, you know, even if you close your eyes while you listen to channelings and there's no picture, you'll be able to feel the message inside of you. You'll be able to feel that it resonates with you. Okay, so have a beautiful rest of your day. Make sure you eat healthy food, drink plenty of water that's not from a tap, because there's lots of chemicals in there, and make sure you also try and get some vitamin D each and every day, and a little bit of exercise too, and try not to overthink. Okay, overthinking is kind of the hardest part of the journey. Alrighty, I'll talk to you real soon. Thank you for being here. As always, I love you all so very much. Thank you for supporting my channel. If you want to donate, please note that I do give to charity quite often, and any donations that I receive will be going to charity. So thank you so much for being here with me, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye everyone. Bye.